Hello and welcome to our video series, The Historical Jesus, a video series where we investigate some of the most challenging, controversial and fascinating questions ever asked about Jesus Christ. In the earlier episodes of this video series, we explored the question of whether Jesus claimed to be God and examined some of the most common objections to that particular claim. We saw that the evidence does not support the idea that Jesus was lying or that he was honestly mistaken about his identity. But there's another objection that is often raised. What if Jesus was mentally unstable? What if he sincerely believed he was God but was actually delusional? At first glance, some people think this might be a reasonable explanation. After all, there have been individuals throughout history who claim to be divine, but were actually not. But when we actually look closely at the life of Jesus, his character, his teachings, the lunatic theory becomes extremely difficult to defend. Let's look at why. Firstly, Jesus does not fit the psychological profile of a lunatic. There are people who suffer from what psychologists sometimes call a divinity complex, a delusion in which someone believes they are God or possesses divine status. Such individuals usually display recognizable symptoms like narcissism, self-obsession, instability, irrational behavior, paranoia, emotional imbalance, and a desperate need for attention. But when we look at Jesus, we see the exact opposite. Jesus was humble, he was compassionate, wise, patient, and deeply concerned for others. He consistently taught self-sacrifice, love, forgiveness, and humility. Instead of promoting selfish ambition, he called people to deny themselves and serve others. Even under intense pressure, Jesus remained calm and composed. During his arrest, trial, torture, and crucifixion, he never lost control of himself. He did not behave irrationally or emotionally collapse under pressure. Instead, he responded with remarkable dignity and clarity. A mentally deranged person claiming to be God would normally show signs of instability and confusion. But Jesus showed wisdom, balance, and self-control. So the personality of Jesus simply does not resemble the behavior normally associated with someone who is mentally deranged. Secondly, the teachings of Jesus were too profound and rational to come from a madman. This is another major problem with the lunatic theory. History is filled with examples of unstable individuals making bizarre claims about themselves. Their ideas are often inconsistent, irrational, or disconnected from reality. But the teachings of Jesus are the complete opposite. Whether Jesus spoke about morality, or relationships, or justice, or forgiveness, or humility, or human nature, his words were consistently profound. They were insightful and deeply practical. Think about some of the teachings. Love your enemies. Do to others what you would have them do to you. Blessed are the peacemakers. Forgive and you will be forgiven. These are not the ravings of a madman. Now, even many non-Christians acknowledge Jesus as one of the greatest moral teachers in history. His teachings have shaped laws, ethics, education, charity, and entire civilizations for nearly 2,000 years. So how could someone detached from reality produce moral wisdom that continues to influence the world at such a deep level? So this idea simply does not make any sense. Thirdly, Jesus consistently displayed a noble and balanced character. People suffering from mental illness usually struggle with consistency. Over time, their instability becomes obvious in their behavior, speech, or relationships. But Jesus displayed remarkable consistency throughout his life. He showed courage without recklessness, authority without arrogance, compassion without weakness, and conviction without hatred. He treated the poor with dignity, confronted hypocrisy fearlessly, and showed mercy even towards sinners and enemies. And even while dying on the cross, Jesus prayed for those crucifying him. That is not the behavior of a mentally unstable person. The Gospels portray Jesus as emotionally balanced, intellectually sharp, and morally pure. So there's no evidence of irrational behavior or psychological collapse anywhere in Jesus' life. Fourthly, people did not react to Jesus the way people react to lunatics. Think about how people normally respond to someone who is obviously insane. They may feel awkward, embarrassed, uncomfortable, or dismissive. Such individuals rarely inspire lasting trust or admiration. But that was not the reaction Jesus received. Crowds travel long distances just to hear him speak. People listened carefully to his teachings. Many left everything behind to follow him. Even his enemies took him seriously. In fact, Jesus did not make people feel embarrassed. He made them feel challenged. His words exposed hypocrisy, confronted sin, and forced people to think deeply about truth, morality, and God. Some people rejected him, but even his critics recognized that he possessed unusual authority and wisdom. A lunatic, on the other hand, may confuse or entertain people temporarily, but he does not inspire generations of devoted followers willing to suffer and die for what they witnessed. Fifthly, Christianity could not have spread the way it did if Jesus were obviously insane. This point is extremely important. Christianity did not begin centuries later in some distant place where nobody knew Jesus personally. It began in Jerusalem and Judea, the very places where Jesus lived publicly and taught openly. The people who first followed him had seen him face to face. They heard him speak. They observed his behavior over time. If Jesus had truly been mentally unstable, this would have become obvious very quickly. People would not have treated him with awe, respect, and loyalty. Yet his followers became so convinced of his identity that many were willing to endure persecution and death rather than deny him. That kind of response is difficult to explain if Jesus was merely a delusional man. Finally, the lunatic theory creates a contradiction. Even many skeptics admit that Jesus was an extraordinary moral teacher. But this creates a serious logical problem. How could someone possess such deep insight into human nature, morality, relationships, and truth, yet completely misunderstand his own identity? As the great C.S. Lewis famously argued in his book Mere Christianity, the idea that Jesus was both a great moral teacher and a lunatic simply does not fit together. The person who taught humanity how to live rightly would somehow be entirely wrong about himself? That explanation creates more problems than it solves. The truth is this, brothers and sisters. When we honestly examine the evidence, the portrait of Jesus in the Gospels does not resemble a liar, a lunatic, or a confused religious fanatic. His life, character, teachings, and influence point in a very different direction altogether. Jesus claimed to be God, and he lived like one. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless you.